So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us to talk about Iran Accountability Week. It's a practice that has been going on for over a decade here on the Hill to hold the Islamic regime in Tehran to account for their ongoing oppression and persecution of the Iranian people, and of course, their state sponsoring of terrorism around the world, as well as executing their ongoing war against Israel and their neighbors in the Middle East. We want to draw to attention how they continue to undermine human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, and how they've been abusing their authoritarian position in executing thousands of people. As we know, during the fall and the summer that we have seen, thousands of Iranians take to the street to denounce the Iranian regime, to demand the removal of the mullahs, and to bring back democracy, accountability, and justice. According to news reports, over 50,000 innocent protesters have been killed on the street by the IRGC and the Quds Force. We know that at least 22 political prisoners were executed between March 17th and April 27th. We know that there's more than 50,000 political prisoners who are currently serving time for, really trumped up charges, facing kangaroo courts that will ultimately lead to their execution. The mullahs have done a terrible thing in how they have continued to persecute anyone that has spoken against the regime, who have fought for women's rights, who have fought for freedom. In the past, I've been advocating for different political prisoners, and some have been released, others were executed. I'd like to just remind everyone of the work we did in getting a Canadian dual citizen, Hamad Kazemi Shah, released. There's also Rohani Jabari, who was executed for murder, but she actually fought off a sexual assault and in self-defense had killed the individual who was trying to rape her. But she was executed in 2014 for defending herself. And Omid Kokabi, who is someone that was tied to the United States, was visiting family when he went back to Iran, was sentenced for 10 years and was released back in 2016. Now, I'd like to today and during Iran Accountability Week draw everyone's attention to Narges Mohammadi, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner in 2023. She is currently imprisoned in Tehran's notorious Evin prison. She needs immediate medical attention. She has, for more than 20 years, fought for women's rights. She has been the symbol of freedom, of democracy, and has been there standing up for people like Mahdi Assami, who was killed because she wouldn't wear her head covering. We know that Ms. Mohammadi needs attention now. She has family, and they are asking her to be released, asking for her release from the regime, and instead they are denying her human right to medical treatment, making sure that she can get well. She said when she received her Nobel Peace Prize in 2023 that I'll never stop striving for the realization of democracy, freedom, and equality. Surely the Nobel Peace Prize will make me more resilient, determined, hopeful, and enthusiastic. Unfortunately, she was thrown into Evin prison for speaking out. She's been arrested 13 times. She's sentenced to 31 years in prison and received 154 lashes and now being denied medical treatment. So we demand, as parliamentarians, as Canadians, as the Persian diaspora, that she be immediately released. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that just earlier this week, University Professor Thomas Janou told the House of Commons Committee on International Human Rights that there's been an uptick in the Iranian regime threatening the diaspora right here in Canada. And that is one of the reasons why I brought forward Bill C-219, which is the Sergei Magnitsky International Anti-Corruption and Human Rights Act, which is currently being studied at the Foreign Affairs Committee. And that committee is digging into why we need legislation that will stiffen up our sanctions laws here in Canada to better coordinate between the Sergei Magnitsky law that we currently have and the Special Economic Measures Act. But we want to make sure that Canada is not used as, first and foremost, a safe haven for corrupt foreign officials, for human rights abusers, and for those that are trying to hide their illicit wealth that they've gained through their corruption and their kleptocracy. We need to make sure that we continue to fight for things like transnational repression that will, for the first time, be defined in legislation, so that when foreign operatives, whether they're registered under the Foreign Agents Registry or whether they are out there actively pursuing the regime's proxy war right here in Canada by targeting members of the Iranian community, as well as other diaspora communities that are being targeted by their own oppressive regimes back in their homeland. So we know that we have to fight to ensure that those that are in Canadian soil, that are using their positions here, often as diplomats, often working in our industries, but are there doing the dirty work of the regime in Tehran, that they are held to account and face the full consequences of Canadian law. Now, I'm going to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak, and I'd like to invite my friend from the International Center for Human Rights, Ardeshir Zarezadeh, to bring comments as well about Iran Accountability Week and to introduce his colleagues.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, MP James Bezan, for supporting the community. You're always there to support the victims of human rights violation and mass atrocity crimes in Iran and around the world. And I'm sure that this Bill C-219, which is defining the transnational repression for the first time in Canada, will help to confront those authoritarian regimes that committing mass atrocity crimes and trying to influence in Canada by intimidating and threatening the dissidents and Iranian Canadian activists. And I really appreciate your work on this amazing bill, and I hope that it gets passed and become a law in Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ardeshir Zarezadeh. I am the director of the International Center for Human Rights in Canada. That's a not-for-profit human rights organization supporting human rights in Iran, in Middle East, and in Canada. This organization consists of lawyers, well-known human rights activists across Canada and United States, Australia, and Europe. I was in jail in Iran for about 5 years. I spent 2 years in solitary confinement fighting for freedom, fighting for human rights and secular democracy. At very younger age, I was detained and put in jail. I spent months in solitary confinement under torture. I understand the great work of politicians like MP James Bezan, supporting those people on the inside suffering under totalitarian regimes. And I really appreciate that. And that's what we expect from Canadian government to do. Unfortunately, since the January mass atrocity crimes occurred in Iran this year, we have seen nothing practical and from the government of Canada. The government of Canada already said, we choose diplomacy over military strikes on Iran. I call it targeted military strikes. The United States and Israel didn't go to war with Iran. They basically targeted the supreme leader and the military and IRGC commanders. And those suppressive regimes. And we asked Canada to join, but they said we choose diplomacy over those actions. But we never saw any alternative plans from Canada. They never defined what diplomacy means in the concept of Canadian politics. The minimum was to introduce a humanitarian program. We never saw any kind of program from Canadian government introduced in support of the Iranian Canadian community or those injured in Iran fighting for freedom and democracy and had to flee the country to neighboring countries like Turkey, like Armenia, to other countries. And there are many of them we know because we have a close connection with the activists on the inside of the country, injured, and they are hiding. And we need to get them out as soon as possible. They need medical care, medical attention. But so far, the government of Canada has not introduced a single humanitarian program or any kind of alternative for this, what they say, diplomacy over military strikes. And another reason that I'm here is to be a voice for the political prisoners in Iran. And you know that the Islamic Republic keeps killing political prisoners in Iran. And 28 political prisoners just hanged in the past few weeks. This is a report from the International Center for Human Rights, my human rights organization. And as you see, these 6 political prisoners were executed in the past 5 days, And in total, 28 political prisoners were executed in the past 2 months. And no single word from Canadian government. And hopefully we see something in the next few days. And in the past 3 days, 2 lawyers were detained. And these are the pictures of 5 well-known lawyers in Iran that were detained by the Islamic Republic in the past few weeks, I would say. There is about 12, I guess, lawyers in jail right now for defending political prisoners, for defending what is called right. This is the picture of 21-year-old karate champion. He was just executed in Iran. He was just 21 years old. And his crime was joining peaceful protests in Iran. And Islamic Republic just executed him. Parham Agha Mohammadi was killed during the mass atrocity crimes in Iran. And I call it crimes against humanity. As rightly said, they killed over, based on our organization investigation, over 43,000 protesters. That's crime against humanity. And Parham Agha Mohammadi's sister went to see him with his graduation clothing. Artin Kazamfari, he is a photographer and he's a Baha'i. He's a member of Baha'i community. He's a photographer. And his family, some of his family lives in Canada. They just detained him, just simply taking pictures. Jahangir Kazemi, another political activist detained in Iran, and some of his family members live in Canada. And we haven't heard anything from Canadian government talking about those in jail. Another political prisoner who has ties to Canada, Mohsen Haj Mohammadi, and his family lives in Halifax. So as you see, there are thousands of political prisoners in Iran, and some of them are right now on death row. And as we speak, we get the news coming out of prisons that there are a number of people on death row and may be executed in the next few days. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to draw your attention to this letter we sent to Prime Minister Carney on February 19, 2026. I asked a number of Liberal MPs to help me get this to Prime Minister's office. We also sent it to the Prime Minister's office from the organization. We never received a single response. It was a very professional letter just asking Prime Minister to take some action. And in brief, I would highlight what we asked the Government of Canada. Impose targeted sanctions on Iranian officials and entities responsible for repression. Support international investigations and accountability mechanism, including International Criminal Court action, and consider the exercise of universal jurisdiction under Canadian law. Increase diplomatic pressure through the United Nations and other multilateral forums. Coordinate with democratic allies to promote human rights protection and democratic governance through lawful and peaceful means, including funding initiatives to protect civilians. Extend or maintain legal status of Iranian temporary residents in Canada who may face persecution or risk upon return, including individuals engaged in peaceful political expression. And as you know, 400,000 Iranian Canadians joined the rally on February 14 in Toronto, 400,000 Iranian Canadians and allies. And it was Toronto police estimation, it was over 350,000. And many of them are on temporary status in Canada and fighting for freedom. Establish a temporary humanitarian program, including the admission of at least 5,000 Iranian refugees facing persecution, detention, torture, and risk of execution as a result of the recent uprising. We had a number of refugee programs during Prime Minister Harper's time, all of them closed. No single refugee program for Iran. Expand protection and support for Iranian human rights defenders, journalists, and refugees. Enforce inadmissibility provisions under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to identify, investigate, and remove individuals engaged in foreign interference, intimidation, threats, or serious human rights violation. Ensure federal and local law enforcement and intelligence agencies remain vigilant regarding threats, intimidation, or transnational repression targeting Iranian communities in Canada. Support secure access to internet and communication tools for people in Iran, consistent with Canada's commitment to freedom of expression, and provide humanitarian assistance for victims of violence and prosecutions. And we have heard no single word from Prime Minister's office. And in this letter, there is no discussion about a war or asking Canadian government to join military strike. And I have with me, I invited Fatemeh Kazemi, and her brother, Sina Kazemi, was one of the very young activists on the inside. Unfortunately, he lost his life for freedom. And I also, my friend Mehrzad Zarei is here. Mehrzad lost his son, Zarei, at the PS-75 flight down by the Islamic Republic. He also lost his brother, Sadek, just a few weeks ago at a checkpoint. He was shot dead by IRGC officers in the city of Shiraz. I will ask Fatemeh to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Zarezadeh, and thank you for having me here. My name is Fatemeh Kazemi. I have been living in Canada for the past 2.5 years and working as a legal assistant in a law firm in Montreal. Today, I stand before you not only as a member of Canadian society, but also as a sister whose only brother was killed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran. My brother, Sina Kazemi, was shot from behind and killed in Tehran on January 8. He was only 22 years old. Sina was not a political leader. He wasn't violent. He was a quiet, introverted young man who loved sport, music, and life. He was a software engineering student in his final semester. At the same time, he worked as a junior front-end developer and studied English, hoping that one day he can build a better future and maybe continue his education abroad. Like millions of young Iranians, Sina only wanted a normal and free life in his own country. But his entire generation grew up under fear, repression, economic crisis, and repeated crackdown from 2009 to 2019, 2022, and now 2026. The night Sina was killed, the regime shut down the internet and phone lines across the country. I did not even know my only brother was gone until 7 days later. Thousands of people were killed during those days. Many were young people, more than 200 children. Their only crime was asking for freedom. Today, protesters continue to be executed without fair trials, while the world struggles to see what's happening in Iran because of the internet blackout, which today marks its 68th day. I ask the government of Canada and the international community, please do not look away. Canada has always stood for human rights and freedom. Please stand with the people of Iran now. My brother believed in a free future for Iran and peace between Iran and other nations. He is gone, but that future he fought for must not die with him. I would like to conclude by naming political prisoner Shakila Qasemi, a 26-year-old woman, and calling for her release, along with all political prisoners who have been imprisoned for their beliefs and expressions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mehrzad Zarei.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mehrzad Zarei. I stand before you not only as a Canadian, but as a father and brother who has lost too much on the brutality of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Over 6 years ago, my beloved son, Ardeshir Zarezadeh, was murdered with another 175 innocents on a PS-752 on terrorist and intentionally act of IRGC. 3 weeks ago, my brother, Sadiq Zarei, was killed on a checkpoint on Shiraz by force and by Basij and IRGC's members. This was not just a killing. After his death, my family was treated and put in pressure on my families to bury the truth about his death. And my brother, Ismail, was with him on the time they arrested my other brother and they take him to the prison. After a few days, he's been released. We are not only alone families in Iran and the countless justice-seeking families across the Iran facing the same intimidation, arrested and treated simply and demanding for the truth and accountabilities. I'm in Parliament today. There is no internet for about over 2 months in Iran. The regime cut the internet to hide in crime from the world. While the people are cut off the form and communication and information, execution continue in silence. Every day, people are being hanged for only one crime. They are standing for freedom. This is the only crime they have, freedom. What happened in Iran is not isolated. Tragically, it's systematic reparations and the mass murdering. Political prisoners are being executed. Protesters are gunned down. Families are silenced, gun pointed. The Islamic regime is a murderer regime. They killing people and they forcing people to be silent and not speak. I ask the government of the Canadas and the parliamentarian colleagues and the members to how many more Canadian families must lose their loved ones before you treating the Islamic Republic as a terrorist regime. What happened to the Canadas? Once we are proud to be Canadian, now what we are now. We see the crime and we look away and we don't support any voiceless people. Will government of the Canadas, they're going to expel the Iranian regime's officials from the Canadas and member of the IRGCs from the Canadas? Or they're going to make the Canadas as a safe haven for the IRGCs and the IRGCs' families here in Canada. The victim families and I refuse to be silenced. We stand for the truth. We stand for the justice, and we stand with the Iranian people until we reach the justice and we reach the free Iran for the Iranian people. We demand the Canadian government to stand with us, not with the political word and empty word. We need the parliamentarian, we need the Canadian government to stand with the Iranian people and be voice of the Iranian people. Every day they hanging people in Iran just for one reason, to be free. The people chanting to be free, which is the basic thing for the human, to be freedom and to be free. But the Iranian, whoever's coming out and chanting for freedom, they've been killed or hanged out. Please, standing with the Iranian, please standing with the Iranian people, and please be voice of the Iranian, which is they don't have an internet for over 2 months. The regimes killing people and innocent people on the silent. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. That wraps up our statements. We take a few short questions, if there are any.
Dylan, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for speaking with us today. I'm wondering
Who you are? who you represent.
Dylan Robertson with the Canadian Press. I'm wondering if you could sort of, I'm wondering if, aside from MP Bezan, the others here, if you could talk a bit about transnational repression. What does this look like for Canadians with a background in Iran? We heard that testimony from an expert who'd spoken with people. I'm wondering if you could give examples of what this is looking like, especially in recent weeks.
I'll let Ardeshir answer that. But as you know, like listening to these heartbreaking stories of innocent people who are getting arrested and then executed, or they're getting gunned down on the streets or at checkpoints, just because they stand for freedom and stand against the suppressive regime and want to see an end to the mullah's tyranny across Iran is one thing. But now to see them actually use their proxies here in Canada against these individuals who have family back in Iran and try to exploit that to try to get them to be silent is disgusting. But Ardeshir, I'll let you.
Well, every time we approach the government, we always hear that there is no resource in place to fight the influence of the foreign governments in Canada. And RCMP always say, we don't have funding, we don't have enough officers, we don't have this and that. And I'm going to remind you of what happened to myself. It was in the news. In a high-profile IRGC intelligence service officer showed up in my office a few years ago for some reason that the RCMP should explain. But the FBI already confirmed that it was a high-profile agent of the regime came to your office to intimidate you or take you down for any reason. He's a high-profile operative anyway, and we reported this to RCMP. I never heard they took action, but they never told me what happened to that person who showed up in my office, and he suspected that I know he's an agent, so he never came back. but he was confirmed to be a high-profile agent. And I just received an email, I guess 2 days ago, from Iranian regime making threats, and I didn't publicize it because I didn't want that news affect what we are doing today for Iran Accountability Day. So. These threats are coming from Islamic Republic to dissidents, to those exposing the Islamic Republic in Canada and fighting their influence in Canada. In 2022, after the death of Mehrzad Amini, we received hundreds of text messages from Iranian agents coming to students and young activists trying to and RCMP already know that. I'm sure they documented this because I know people went to RCMP and talked to the RCMP. So as you see, these are happening in Canada, and no one taking this serious. I'm sure that agencies are working on it, but we need a proper law in place to confront those transnational repression, because the lack of the laws in Immigration and Refugee Protection Act or Magnitsky Law Act or other laws, I'm sure this Bill C-219 will help. But in short, yes, these are happening in Canada, and the regime is making threats. And I heard that they send threats to Mehrzad Zarei because he's in the front line fighting for justice for family victims in the past few years, and he received threats from Iranian regime as well.
If I put, as a family victims, which is they kill his son and his brother, it's so painful to see Canada's is beautiful countries, which is all of us, we loved it, to become as a safe haven for the IRGC's members. As far as I know, we have more than 1,000 IRGC's members. They live freely in Canada here. I asked Mark Carney, you have to do something. Here is not a home for IRGCs. We have to send them back to the place they are belonging, not to be free, living on the free countries. Thank you.
And just looking more in the region itself, you have different asks here in terms of a humanitarian program, in terms of international accountability for the regime. I'm wondering, other than the U.S. and Israel in the active conflict, are there other countries that you're seeing taking up these programs that you think Canada should be learning from right now?
Asking me? Or?
Yep. If you want to
go ahead.
Reply, go ahead.
I started asking you, so can you repeat that question again so I make sure that I got it right?
Yeah, so other than the belligerents in the conflict, I'm just wondering if there's other countries other than the U.S. and Israel that you think Canada can learn from in terms of, actions on the ground. You'd been talking about humanitarian resettlement. You were talking about international accountability mechanisms. I'm wondering if you see any other country that's been stepping up right now.
Well, the problem is everybody says it's U.S. war, so we're not going to join the war. That's what I heard from Canadian MPs, Liberal MPs, and the government a number of times. But they don't have to join the war. They don't have to join the U.S. forces if they don't want. It's their option. I can't ask government to do something that is their choice. But the thing is, how about the people of Iran? Canada has a long-standing reputation supporting human rights and peace around the world. So in terms of support to Iran, we saw nothing. They don't have to join to the U.S. war. They just they have to observe their laws and their international commitments in terms of supporting the people of Iran. The same they did in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, and other countries.
And I'll just add to that, Dylan, that, the one thing that Bill C-219 does in the preamble is call on the government to follow through on the establishment of the International Anti-Corruption Court. If we can go after those kleptocrats and those officials who are abusing their positions of power earlier on in their regime's life, we may be able to prevent these types of atrocities. Almost every genocidal maniac starts off as a kleptocrat. And so if we can fight corruption at the international level and set up a court within The Hague that specializes in this, grand larceny that we're seeing being carried out by, corrupt foreign officials, then we have more leverage in stopping it first and foremost. It really is a prevention tool, and the world can no longer sit by and not actually go out there and quickly prosecute those, because Iran's a perfect case in point. You have, the fanatics within the regime itself, and then you got the corrupt officials, which are often the leadership within the IRGC. And if we could get them arrested and prosecuted early, we wouldn't maybe be dealing with the problem we have today, and there could have been regime change years ago. Additionally, if you look at the situation, if we had gone out there and quickly prosecuted, the overall ability, you got to keep in mind, the people in Iran, again, perfect example, the people of Iran haven't been able to fight back. They haven't been able to go out there and arrest these officials. And so that's where international leadership is required. And instead of rolling over, as has been done over the years, in always giving quarter to the Ayatollah, whether it was Khomeini or now Khomeini's son, we actually have to start talking about that these individuals and their governments have to face the music, and that only happens through international efforts to hold them to account.
With the moderator's permission, I might ask a few more follow-ups. I'm wondering, Mr. Bezan, so far how you would characterize the exchanges around your bill coming from the government. Has this been a productive exchange in terms of possible modifications to the bill, or is it the opposite of productive? I'm just wondering how you would characterize that.
No, look, I have been working hard across party lines to ensure the success of the bill. I don't see this as a partisan exercise. I want to see this bill pass so that it will have effect, and that the laws in Canada will become more coherent, as well as stronger and collaborative with our international allies. We are seeing, good comments coming from committee study that we're already in. I already appeared as a witness on the bill. It's back at committee again tomorrow. We'll hear from the government officials. Hopefully, we'll get some expert testimony. I know we're having trouble getting Bill Browder available for tomorrow, but he was available yesterday. Unfortunately, with votes and everything, that committee got canceled. But if we can get Bill Browder or Vladimir Kara-Murza, potentially we can have somebody from the International Center for Human Rights up here. They've already written in. I can tell you that, yesterday I talked to the Falun Dafa Association, who were on the Hill. They've been supportive, and as well as, the Tibetan community, the Ukrainian community, the Russian Democratic Movement, the Uyghurs. We're seeing good pickup across the board, people that believe in human rights and democracy and want to be safe in their communities here. Want to provide the tools to the government to do the job. So we'll see what comes out. I haven't seen the amendments, but as I said, I'm open to amendments if it makes the bill better. So I'm waiting to see the government, what they plan on amendments. One thing that I have to say is that we want to make sure that some of the definitions are pretty strong. So like when we talk about immediate family members, we're not talking about, a corrupt official being banned and sanctioned from Canada and, his dependent children or her dependent children or their spouse. We're talking about the immediate family, which includes adult children, which includes parents, brothers, sisters, other siblings. That all has to be stopped, because that's how these corrupt foreign officials get around hiding their illicit wealth, and how they use Canada as a safe haven. Is that they send, family members here with large amounts of money that they've stolen from their own countries. And the IRGC members are a good case in point of that. So it's not just the IRGC members, but it's also their extended families, their immediate families, which include parents, children, and siblings.
Just going to ask a few more questions, unless I'm cut off here.
I'll take one more, and then I got to run to QP.
Sure. Just briefly, Mehdi Taj, the head of the Iranian Football Association, there was the visa issued, and then he was sent back to Tehran. We'd heard from an international law professor who said that he should have been arrested at the border and prosecuted. I'm just wondering if there's any perspective on whether we should have done that, whether that would have been possible.
Well, that's why there is new bill C-219 is for transnational repression is going to be introduced in the House. And I guess even though we have a lack of proper laws in place, there is this universal jurisdiction that permits Canadian government to arrest anyone who has any role in suppressing the freedom of expression and human rights abuses. So Canada can take that role, but they choose not. And at the same time, we have laws in place. Immigration Protection Refugee Act denies entry of anyone who has role in human rights violation or mass atrocity crimes, crimes against humanity. And I'm going to add one more thing. We had a meeting when the government listed IRGC with the representatives of the government from CBSA, RCMP, Foreign Affairs, different agencies, along with the legal team. And we asked this specific question. If an IRGC just landed, arrived at Pearson Airport, what you going to do? What is the action you're going to take? Because you just listed IRGC, right? And no one knew what to say. And then the legal advisor responded, we can't do anything because this guy or that officer has to commit a crime on Canadian soil, and you report it to the police, and then we will arrest them. And the police will arrest them and prosecute them. Other than that, nothing will happen. So if you listed IRGC, you can't say that. But this happened to Mehdi Taj after we exposed his arrival. Before that, he was issued a visa, a temporary permit, and the government issued this permit means somebody reviewed the case. It wasn't a temporary resident visa and issued by a computer or software or something. It was a permit. And permit has to be reviewed by an officer and be issued on reasonable grounds. And somebody issued that. But the government is not responding why they issued temporary permit to somebody is a high-profile IRGC commander. That's a question for us too. So I guess we need more work from the government.
Thank you. Oh, you want to say
something? You know, we already listed the IRGCs on the list of the terrorist entities in Canada. What government of the Canada is doing after putting to the list what they did? They did nothing. We have the people, they are wearing or putting hat of the IRGCs. They come in on the street of Toronto or they come in here in Ottawa. They're standing and clearly they're supporting IRGCs. What the government they do? What the RCMP they do? Nothing. We have to do something. What we saying, we are taking and we are the people with the pain. We tell you for the free and better Canada, we have to be act now, not tomorrow. Send all these IRGCs back or the place they all belong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just again, it is Iran Accountability Week. Let's make sure that we continue to hold the regime to account and that we demand the release of all political prisoners and prisoners of conscience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.